Today we are going to try on the Luminous Legends Mega Palette by Pat McGrath Labs that recently came out. I will swatch, describe, and apply these on the eyes. Being a longtime user of products from this brand, I'm going to give you my opinion on some of their other products as well. So if you're contemplating on getting these at a discount, you can, because these prices can be a bit steep. And it's best to not pay full price for them if you don't have to. The categories I'm going to comment on are eyeshadow and eye products, complexion products, lip products, and face products. Let's talk first about the eyeshadow palette for this holiday season. This is called the Luminous Legends Mega Eyeshadow Palette. Now, I think this packaging is very reminiscent of the Bridgerton packaging that they've done in the past. And I don't hate it, but I think it's kind of getting repetitive at this point, and I would like to see something else. But it's nice. It's very shiny, very holiday. If you look at this as a standalone, apart from what came before this, it's pretty nice. This is what the palette looks like inside. So the story goes, when I first saw this palette online, when they revealed it, I was beyond underwhelmed and kind of disappointed that they weren't doing more colorful shades, because they tend to do that in their previous holiday palettes, which I will get to when I compare this with others. But this has a lot of those neutral-ish, pinky-ish tones, which at this point I think we've seen enough. I don't necessarily hate them because I think they do look good in a very traditional sense. Of course, being a makeup artist changes my view on things, because one part of me loves the colorful aspect of makeup, but as a makeup artist, I've learned that some tones work really well for all skin tones. And this includes the blush, brown, pinky colors that Pat McGrath tends to do, both in their face palettes as well as eye palettes. It is a well-known fact that Pat McGrath Labs is known for their pinky neutrals, especially in their lipstick line as well. Most of their matte lipstick line is composed of pinky nudes. So I saw this and I thought, well, this might be the first year I'm not gonna get it. Anyway, the collector in me just wanted it. But when I actually opened it and looked at it in person, I realized that all the pictures online don't do it justice. It's actually a much nicer palette when you actually look at it in person, because there are these very glittery shades in there that are definitely a little bit more holiday, a little bit more special. While I don't think these are on par with the Mothership special shades or anything like that, I still think this is interesting enough, at least for me, to buy it. And I want to test out the shades, whether they swatch well or perform nicely on the eyes, and so that is what we'll be doing. But I just wanted to throw it out there that if you didn't like the pictures initially, they use a lot of filters on their page, and when this actually launched, for a while there were no reviews. I'm sure there are a few up now, but at the time when I bought this, there were essentially no reviews anywhere. And I just want to say I'm happy I got it, because in person it looks much nicer. In the pictures, the only shade that stood out to me is this one, and of course this one as well. It seems like these should be like a blue and purple shimmer, but they actually have a little bit more dimension going on. The purple has fine blue sparkle, and the blue is quite a glittery blue, and it shifts to purple. So I think this is going to be more special than it's being advertised as, which is such a pity. I don't know who's managing their social media, but all the filters and the distorted images just make it look like really ordinary, whereas Pat McGrath makeup tends to be pretty good, in my opinion. Also, I was looking at another influencer's video about this, and they said it was made in Italy, so it's going to be that amazing formula, which I've said in my previous videos, I don't really care where the thing is made. I just care that it performs well and has a good formula. Personally, I've had no problems with any of the eyeshadows in other Pat McGrath palettes either. I don't really care about where it's made, because it doesn't matter. It just has to be good quality. So let's try this on and find out. Going to prime with this. This is their older eye primer. I'm not sure what exactly it achieves. I haven't seen a lot of difference in my eyeshadows lasting longer or looking more intense because of this. There is another primer that they launched after this, and I don't have it. But I am thinking that they improved this formula. Maybe that one will be better than this one, but I can't speak to it because I don't have it. Let's start with this matte shade. There's only 3 matte shades in this palette. True mattes. This one is more of a pinky shade. Like I said, it has a little bit of warmth, so today I'm going to be doing more of a warmer look. So that is the goal today. Initially, I thought there was going to be a lot of these pinky mattes and a few shimmers, but it's actually the other way around. I'm thinking of doing a separate look on each eye. I've put the pinky nude shade on this one, and on the other eye I'm going to do this shade. It's like a taupey beige kind of shade. Very nice basic shade. I would say the formula is kind of a creamy matte. It feels a little bit creamy when you touch it with the finger, but it also has a little bit of fallout, which makes me think this is more of a powder. I'm going to put this one on the outer corner. This seems to be quite a deep shade, so good for deepening up those outer corners, but it's not black, which would have been pretty jarring in this palette. There is a black in the eyeshadow duos. There is a gold and a black, and I actually contemplated picking that one. Going to do the same shade as the crease for the lower lash line. I actually really like this taupey beige. Actually more of a rosy taupe kind of shade, like a cool toned rose. Very natural, very pretty. For some reason I like the basic shades in these palettes, even though I'm not the biggest neutral makeup lover. For this eye, I want a little bit of a contrast and color, so let's do this minty blue. Okay, I like this. This is really nice. This is a minty blue base with sparkle that shifts from pink to blue to purple. Next, let's do this shade. So magenta base with sparkle that shifts from blue to magenta. These are definitely special shades with a lot of that fine sparkly glittery particles. In terms of particle size, not chunky, very fine, which we like. Next up is this blue. This is a special shade. It has lots of sparkle in there. It has quite a shift as well. So glittery particles as well as that purple shift. Let's switch over to this one. Let's start with this shade. This is that peachy pink to gold. There is a similar color to this one in the Danessa Myricks Lightwork 6 palette. And I think one of the Patrick Ta duos has a light peachy pink to a gold flip kind of shade. It seems to be a little bit more saturated and high impact than the Patrick Ta eyeshadow duos, which I've seen many reviews of, but it is in the same color family. Let's try this one. Another one of those very sparkly shades. Very fiery copper shade with lots of gold sparkle. I am having a hard time thinking whether I have something like this in my collection. I actually really like this. I am loving how this is turning out. I'm not sure how metallic this is going to be. Okay, this is straight up metallic, like a gorgeous cranberry shade. It doesn't have that sparkle, the glitter particles. It doesn't have those, but it's very metallic. Oh, this is just gorgeous. Even all over, this would look really nice. I don't know what it is, but these pinky nude tones from Pat McGrath Labs, they always get me. But somehow other brands have never been able to get me with their nude palettes. I don't entirely know what it is. I'm going to use that same pinky shade that I used for the crease. I don't know what it is, but these clay pinks have my heart. Let's use this on the inner corner. This is another one of those shades that really intrigues me in this palette. It's like a bright metallic lilac. Shows up almost silvery with a hint of that lilac shade. Let's swatch. Gorgeous, and that was just the slightest touch. There's a light yellowy gold. I want to put it on this inner corner here. This shade has less of a base pigment, but lots of sparkle, which may not make it the best for an inner corner, but an all-over lid application would be best for this. So you could use one deeper matte and sparkle this all over. This is one of those topper-like glittery shades that have been pretty popular this season. Look at this wash of sparkle. I am starting to get impressed by this palette, and that is not a good look for me. So there are 4 shades left in the palette that I haven't put on my eyes or swatched yet, so let's do that. This pinky coral with flecks of gold sparkle throughout. This is beautiful. This has a slight gold shift to it. And you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of those Fenty blushes that came out in the summer. And I mean these ones. Look at this. This is the lightest shade of all 3, but I have all 3 and they all look pretty much the same with just slight differences in depth, but this looks very much like that. And I think it'll look nice as blush too. Don't be afraid to put your eye products on your cheeks. Next is this shade. I would describe it as a platinum, like a silver with a hint of gold in it. These swatch so well. I think this is meant to be a topper shade, but I went a little bit more heavily, which is fine, but I want to see if you can disperse this and get a sparkly effect. Here it is. It's quite pigmented. It could be sheared out for that wash of sparkle, or it could be built up to a metallic intensity. This shade, I'd say this is an antique greeny gold with pink sparkle throughout it. It is really nice, and I'm wondering what I have similar to this. And last, we have this shade. This is a very neutral shade. Could it be a light rose gold? Yep, I think that is what it is. It has that rosy undertone as you turn it to the side there. So I'd say the only topper-like shade was this one. I like the mix of finishes in here as well. So most of them are quite glittery, which is appropriate for the festive season coming up. And there are quite a bit of those special shades as well with a shifting base. On top of that, we have this gorgeous metallic and this pink shade with a slight gold flip as well. We have this topper-like shade. The mattes were all very nice color choices that go with pretty much everything. And this is a glittery shade. This one is quite glittery. This one has a shifting base. This one also has multicolored sparkle in it. This one is a very bright sparkly shade. I also love this one, very metallic. This one is also metallic. This can be sheared out to give the effect of that dispersed sparkle as well. This is a very unique shade, an antique gold with pink sparkle all throughout it. And overall, color me impressed. This is potentially better than a Mothership palette because there aren't as many shades in the Mothership palette. This has 15 shades and it only has 3 mattes, which I like. I prefer a shimmer heavy palette, which this definitely is. Plus the mix of finishes is great. I expected this one to be a satin, but it turned out to be a full-on metallic shade. I expected this to be like the 4 satins from the Danessa Myricks Lightwork palette, but it's not like that. It has shimmers that the neutral lover will love, and also it has 4 colorful shades. So these 3 here and the blue here that I would describe as bright colors. Overall, I really like this and I recommend this. In the past, Pat McGrath Labs has had up to 40% off on their website. I remember that from the pandemic years, but more recently they've had 30% off sales as well. So I'd say if you want this, maybe wait for the Pat McGrath Labs own sale on their website. I recommend this over the other eyeshadow releases that have been coming out this season. This eyeshadow palette was the only thing that I picked up from this collection. I actually got it from Sephora and it is 103 Canadian dollars on the site. If you take 20% off with the sale, it's a good deal. If you take 30% off, if you shop the sales from Pat McGrath Labs, which I expect will be coming soon, it's even better of a deal. Especially with the number of shades in there, there are quite a bunch of those sparkly shades in neutral tones that the Sephora customer typically prefers, and the color selection and the finish selection is excellent. If you don't want to go for the big palette but you still want those sparkly neutral tones, I would say go for this quint over here. This is called Dawn Divinity. If you're more into those deeper, maybe a little bit more colorful shades, go for the Starfall Seduction. I initially wanted this one, but I thought with the bigger palette I would not get use out of this. There are also 3 eyeshadow duos, which are over here. If you want more neutral tones, of course the one in the middle would be best. On the top would be nice for a more editorial look. On the bottom there is the duo of muted greens, which is pretty as well. I don't think we have those shades in the larger palette as well, so that could be an option. There's also the Mini Lust Gloss Duo in Nude Mood. These are 2 nude glosses, which are great for every day. These are, I believe, existing shades. The gloss formula from Pat McGrath Labs is one of my favorites. I find them to be a very comfortable formula, and I'm not a gloss person at all. I don't like lip glosses unless they're super special, but even I prefer the formula over most others. This is the Mini Matte Trans Lipstick Trio. I personally don't use smaller sizes, but these have 3 colors if you want to try the formula out, which is actually pretty good. It's very silicone-y in a good sense. Glides on easily, lasts, is quite transfer proof. It might be slightly drying as it is right now, but I haven't had that issue before. Then there are combined kits of these items, which are definitely a good value. Overall, I approve of this collection. If you are going to be shopping the sale, there are a few things that I recommend from the brand. To me, I think of Pat McGrath Labs as mass-produced luxury, which means that sometimes there may be slight imperfections with certain things, but the formulas generally apply very well, like luxury formulas should. For example, the lipstick components sometimes are wonky, they can come off, or sometimes the cap is too loose, or this thing comes off, but the lipstick inside would perform really well, in my opinion. that is what I mean. So we've already talked about the eyeshadows, the lipsticks, and the lip glosses. There is another category of products that I would highly recommend from Pat McGrath Labs, which is their face products. So I'm not sure if they have any palettes or face trios available, but these are really good. The blushes, the bronzers, the highlighters, they're all in my top favorites of formulas to use. Very easy to use, very easily blendable on the face, and just all around good products. They used to have these blush duos, they used to have these very high impact highlighters, but then they also had this formula, which is really nice, which you can apply for a more natural finish as well. Plus you can build it up to a higher intensity. The blushes come in a variety of colors. Of course, this is a woman of color owned brand, so the products are very inclusive, which is super important to me. I don't really buy from brands that are not inclusive. Other products like mascaras, I have a bunch of colored mascaras from Pat McGrath Labs. Really like them all. This is the Dark Star mascara. This is my most used mascara in my collection. I like the eyeliners as well. The PMGL eye pencils are really nice. They come in brown and black shades. I have a few of the PMGL Ultra Lip Pencils as well. They go on really nicely, but they're not too creamy to slip and slide, so I think these are pretty good. In terms of complexion products, the Pat McGrath Labs Concealer is one of my favorites. It's very creamy, but then it sets down very nicely, and it doesn't crease, it doesn't move around. It's just a very solid and easy to use formula. And you'd only need a little because a little goes a long way. The foundation is also a really nice one. I'm just wearing one layer, but you can build it up. It has a very liquid consistency, which means it's very easy to apply, easy to blend, comparing to most other foundations on the market. But it is buildable, so if you were to do more layers, you can definitely get more coverage. And in that sense, I think it is quite customizable, depending on your preference. The powder is fine. I'm not entirely sure if it's anything special. The blush sticks are okay. I don't use them a lot, but they're an okay formula. They're not sticky. I don't think there are a lot of great blush sticks out there, and these are truly one of the better ones. I also tried the Divine Skin Rose 001, the Essence, and I didn't really notice anything special about it, so that I cannot really recommend. Also, I didn't use it long enough. It was just a few samples. The new primer that they have, I haven't tried that, but I've tried this old one, which is similar to the Touch and Soul primer, which I'm a fan of, but the Pat McGrath one, I don't think it has the same amount of silicone or line smoothing properties. It has just a little bit less, so I'm not entirely sure if it's special, and I can't recommend that because I don't use that enough. And last we have the Pat McGrath Labs famous motherships. I can't in good conscience recommend these because of what else is available on the market. The special shades in these palettes are not as special anymore because indie brands are doing a much better job at making those. Also, with the heavyweight packaging and whatever else people use to justify these, I still think they are not something I would recommend for the price. I think these are more for the collectors of the brand. However, if you want to collect these, I would say get them in a bundle so they'd be discounted, and then use that 30% or more discount on top of that. So that's the best way to get those, in my opinion, if you don't want to pay full price on each of them. Now for some comparisons. These are the larger holiday palettes that have come from Pat McGrath Labs over the years. These two are the larger palettes from the last year. There were a few quints as well, which I have, but I think since I have the larger palette here, I would compare them to these. This is one of them. I didn't really like these because the colors are just too muted for my taste. There were 4 mattes, and overall it just wasn't a very special palette for me. Same is the case with the other one. This has more of a warm toned color story, a little bit deeper, but again, this doesn't have much of a twist. It doesn't have anything too special, although there are a couple of shifty special shades in there, but I wish all of them had been condensed into one palette, as was the case this year. Overall, I still think they're pretty okay, especially for a travel palette where there are 2 blushes in there as well. I liked that. I took them on vacation with me and I was very happy. It was just a very simple, no-nonsense kind of application, because these products do perform seamlessly. Even if the colors aren't very exciting, I still think they're nice. They just don't have as many eyeshadow shades as the one this year, which I think is my qualm with these. But apart from that, they're good. Next we have this one. I don't know what year it's from, but this definitely has more shades and a lot more colorful shades than the one from this year. It says made in USA, and apparently that is not the best quality that Pat McGrath Labs has to offer, supposedly. So I'm going to swatch a few of these because I don't think I've used this in years, let's be honest. There are shifty shades in here, there are sparkly shades. Here are just a few of the shades. I don't see any issues, but they're just a little bit drier in the pan, but that could just be age, or maybe there is a slight formula difference, but these are pretty great. Pat McGrath Labs, in terms of their eyeshadows, I think have over the years moved to a more neutral heavy kind of approach because they want to target more mainstream customers, which makes sense. It is just speculation, but it seems that the brand may have had some financial difficulties in the past, and it makes sense for them to try and target a more wider audience base. So if you compare these two, this one is a lot more neutral than the older one. There was this one, another large holiday palette. This also has 18 shades just like the previous one, unlike this year's palette which has only 15. But as you can see, there are a lot more colorful matte shades in here, which is a little bit different for the brand. There are only neutral shimmers and colorful mattes, which is an interesting choice. In the palette for this year, of course, there's only 3 true matte shades. And last we have this one. This one is also quite shimmer heavy, however, the sparkly kind of shimmers are quite few. I think there's only about 3 or 4 in there, and the others are more metallic or maybe even satin-like. But there are only 4 true matte shades in here, and they are all neutral shades. This palette is quite a bit neutral leaning, but it does appeal to the color lover in me as well. There's a green, there's a burnt orange. The neutrals in this one are quite saturated, so that's pretty good. That appeals to a color lover like myself as well. I'd say that can also be said about this one. These tones are not muted by any chance. The copper shade is close to a fiery metallic orange. There is a lot of sparkle in all shades, and the colorful shades are shifty as well. So overall, I'm very happy with the palette given what the brand has come out with in the past as well. That is all I wanted to cover in this video. I hope you got some good recommendations out of this, or just good entertainment. You got to see some sparkly eyeshadows in action, and I hope to see you next time as well. Bye now!